Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your home, the one you worked your entire life to afford, might no longer be yours to keep. In California right now, that fear isn't just a bad dream. It's reality for thousands of families. From skyrocketing mortgage payments to vanishing insurance coverage, and from corporate investors quietly buying entire neighborhoods to new laws that could reshape who even gets to live here. Something big is happening. This isn't just another housing story. It's a warning, because if the trend continues, millions of Californians could find themselves forced out of their homes, not by natural disasters or personal mistakes, but by a system quietly turning against them. Let's break down exactly how California reached this point, who's behind it, and why it might be the biggest real estate crisis since 2008. Only this time, it's personal. Just a few years ago, in early 2020, the median monthly payment for a typical California home was around $3,600. Fast forward to 2025, and that same home now costs nearly $6,000 a month. Interest rates doubled, home prices soared, and wages didn't. Only 17% of Californians can now afford a median-priced single-family home. That means 83% of the population is locked out. Think about that. In one of the richest states in the world, owning a home has become a luxury. And the problem isn't isolated to first-time buyers, because when home prices rise faster than paychecks, the entire system begins to strain. People stay put longer, fewer homes hit the market, and those who do buy often stretch themselves to the financial breaking point. The result? California's housing dream, the cornerstone of its middle class, is collapsing under its own weight. But the scariest part? Even those who already own homes aren't safe. You might think, I already bought my house, so I'm protected. Not quite. Many homeowners are trapped in what experts call the lock-in effect. They locked in ultra-low pandemic mortgage rates, 2 or 3%, and now they can't move without doubling their monthly costs, so they don't sell. That might sound harmless, but it's creating a chain reaction. With fewer homes on the market, prices stay inflated. That keeps buyers desperate and renters hopeless. And while these owners cling to their homes, another kind of buyer has quietly taken over: big money investors. According to recent studies, nearly 1 in 5 homes in California is now investor-owned. Hedge funds, corporate landlords, and private equity firms are buying properties not to live in them, but to profit from them. They see what's happening, and they're cashing in on the chaos. Because when supply dries up and desperation grows, profit margins soar. But for regular people, that profit comes at a cost: their stability. The investor invasion isn't new, but the scale is. In some California zip codes, entire streets are now owned by corporate landlords. They buy foreclosures in bulk, flip them into luxury rentals, or sit on them until values rise. And when investors control neighborhoods, the rules change. They can raise rents aggressively, refuse renewals, or push families out under the guise of renovations. In extreme cases, homeowners facing tough times receive relentless offers to sell until they finally give in. Imagine living in a neighborhood where every third house belongs to a faceless LLC, and every time you come home, there's a "We Buy Homes" flyer on your porch. That's happening across Los Angeles, Sacramento, and even mid-sized cities like Fresno and Bakersfield. It's not gentrification, it's monetization. Homes aren't shelter anymore. They're assets. And once housing becomes a game of numbers, regular families can't compete. But this crisis goes deeper than prices and investors. The state's own geography and policies have made the situation nearly impossible to fix. California's beauty is also its burden. Wildfires, droughts, and floods are now regular threats. Insurance companies have responded by quietly pulling out of entire regions. In 2024 alone, several of the nation's biggest insurers, including State Farm, stopped writing new policies in parts of the state. That means, even if you own your home outright, you might not be able to insure it. And without insurance, your mortgage lender can call in the loan, or your resale value can plummet. At the same time, decades of restrictive zoning and endless environmental red tape have stifled construction. Laws like SB 79 aim to accelerate building, but they face fierce local resistance. From the same communities demanding affordable housing, it's a paradox. Everyone wants lower prices, but nobody wants new construction next door. Add to that skyrocketing property taxes, aging infrastructure, and climate risk premiums, and you start to see how staying in your home could soon cost more than leaving it. But wait, there's an even darker twist to this story, one that has nothing to do with nature or politics and everything to do with control. For many Californians, the squeeze is coming from every direction. Homeowners who refinanced during the boom now face ballooning insurance and tax bills. Renters who thought they'd save for a down payment find that rents are climbing faster than wages, and investors, armed with cash, are buying up what's left before anyone else can. The math simply doesn't work anymore. A family earning $120,000 a year, a solid middle-class income, can barely afford a starter home in the major metro areas. Even modest properties now require $200,000 in combined income to qualify. And the moment one payment slips, foreclosure letters start appearing. But what's terrifying is how subtle the process is. No one comes to your door overnight demanding you leave. It happens slowly. An insurance renewal denied, an HOA fee increase, a new city tax assessment. Each change small enough to tolerate until suddenly it's not. That's how people get forced out without realizing it. But there's another side to this, and it's hitting renters even harder. For renters, California has turned into a high-stakes survival game. Across major cities, average rent for a one-bedroom apartment has climbed past $2,800 a month, with some coastal regions hitting $3,500 or more. Incomes haven't kept pace, meaning many Californians now spend over half their paycheck on rent. And when corporate landlords own the building, there's little mercy. Miss one payment, and late fees snowball. Complain about maintenance, and your lease might not be renewed. Eviction filings have quietly surged across the state since 2023. Legal aid groups report unprecedented backlogs of families fighting to stay housed. Meanwhile, short-term rental platforms continue to absorb housing stock. In some tourist-heavy areas, as much as 25% of available housing has been converted into vacation rentals. So while Californians scramble to find stable housing, a quarter of the supply now caters to travelers instead of residents. It's no wonder so many people are packing up and leaving. Yet for those who stay, the situation grows more precarious by the day. Since 2020, California's population has dropped by nearly 700,000 people, the largest decline in the state's history. The headlines call it the California Exodus, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Many of those leaving aren't wealthy elites escaping taxes. They're ordinary working families priced out of the very communities they helped build. Entire neighborhoods are transforming. Schools are closing from low enrollment. Local businesses are struggling as foot traffic declines. And ironically, as people leave, the housing supply still doesn't rebound because those empty homes aren't going to families. They're being bought, bundled, and rented back at premium rates by large corporations. It's a feedback loop that deepens inequality. Fewer residents, less community stability, and more control concentrated in corporate hands. But despite all this, some Californians are refusing to give up, and what they're doing might hold clues for how to survive what's coming next. Across the state, grassroots groups are pushing back against corporate housing control. Tenant unions are forming. Homeowners associations are banding together to resist investor pressure. Cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco have introduced new taxes targeting vacant properties owned by large firms. Oakland and Sacramento are experimenting with community land trusts, nonprofits that buy land and lease it affordably to locals instead of speculators. And there's a growing push for transparency, demanding that every property purchase disclose its ultimate owner. These changes won't happen overnight, but they're proof that Californians aren't powerless. The housing crisis may feel unstoppable, but awareness is the first weapon, because once people realize what's really happening and who benefits, the conversation changes. Still, the reality is that not everyone will be able to hold on, and that brings us to the hardest truth of all. Picture this. It's 2027, mortgage rates remain high, property insurance is scarce, investor control expands into smaller towns that once felt safe. A retired couple in San Bernardino sees their premiums triple because of new wildfire risk maps. A young family in the Bay Area loses their rental after a developer converts the building into condos. A teacher in Fresno discovers her mortgage escrow has ballooned after a reassessment. Different stories, same outcome. Californians being priced out, pushed out, or slowly worn down until leaving feels like the only choice. And if nothing changes, experts warn that by 2030, California could lose another 1 million residents. The state's identity, built on sunshine, opportunity, and the promise of owning a piece of the dream, may fade into myth, but there's still a chance to rewrite that ending. So what can you actually do? Start with awareness. Research who owns properties in your neighborhood. Many counties provide that data publicly. If corporate ownership is rising, spread the word. Talk to local representatives about housing legislation. Push for renter protections, transparent ownership laws, and incentives for first-time buyers. If you own a home, don't ignore your insurance or tax notices. Review them carefully. If costs rise, compare quotes aggressively or seek local assistance programs. And most importantly, don't assume your housing situation is guaranteed. Prepare options, co-housing, family pooling, or relocation plans if your area becomes unlivable. None of these steps are glamorous, but they're the difference between being blindsided and being ready. California's housing system may be breaking, but knowledge and community remain powerful tools of resistance. The California real estate crisis isn't just about numbers, it's about people. Families who worked decades to afford stability, now watching it slip away. It's about a generation realizing that homeownership, once the ultimate American dream, might now be a corporate fantasy. But it's also about a chance to learn, adapt, and fight back before the next wave hits. Because the truth is, homes were never meant to be stock portfolios. They were meant to be safe places for raising kids, building memories, and growing old in peace. And if that idea still matters, then the fight isn't over. So before you click away, ask yourself, how safe is your home really? If you live in California or anywhere facing the same pressures, drop your city in the comments. Let's see how widespread this is. And if this opened your eyes, hit like, share the video, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. Because what's happening in California today could happen anywhere tomorrow. And when it does, you'll want to be ready.